Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the free security education webinars provided by International Security Training. My name is Brian Allen, and I will be your instructor today. Our topic, as the slide says, is should we work armed or unarmed? It's not as easy as a lot of people tend to think when they talk to me for the first time. So our objectives for today are going to be to discuss the weapons and their use in protection work. And from there, we're going to go on to defining liability in a couple different facets. And finally, we're going to review some training considerations. Obviously, this could go on for a full 8-hour course, but we're going to try to cover at least the big topics. When you're looking at weapons in protection work, there tends to be some of the misconceptions while I guess it's kind of the fault of our marketing. A lot of us who are trainers in the industry, we tend to put out marketing, and it's always the exciting parts of our industry. So we're always using semi-automatic and automatic weapons. There are a lot of convoys that we show. It's just very exciting. And a lot of people tend to think that normal bodyguard work, normal protection work, is like that. And that is not the case. Okay, that is typically going to be seen in close environment, hostile protection work overseas. Okay, that's what that's for. That is not what the standard bodyguard deals with here in the United States, whether he or she's working for a company or a VIP or a celebrity. Okay, so that's the first thing. The second thing is that it's not going to be the big rifles and shotguns in most cases. In most cases, you're going to be carrying a handgun, a pistol. Okay, and then from there, you're going to be coming down to your less than lethal options, and that's where we're sitting at most of the time. Okay, now who should make the decision? It should definitely be a corporate decision when you are working for a company or the client. Now, if you're working for a client, in other words, you're a solo operator, you're an individual protection agent licensed appropriately within your jurisdiction, you can coach them, you can educate them, but they're going to have to make the decision. Okay. A company, it should be kind of a collaborative process when people start deciding whether or not their protection agents should be armed or not. I would have the director of security in there, maybe a seasoned line agent, and also have your CEO, and also the legal team, whoever's representing the legal team. Everybody needs to get in there and work together, and it should take a while. It should be an in-depth review of the scenarios and the liabilities. Finally, I want you to look at staff personalities. Unfortunately, a lot of times we bring people onto our security teams that are just a little bit trigger happy, or they're looking for that aggressive situation. They love to fight, they love to shoot, whatever's going on there. If I see someone that just gets a little too antsy when everything is going right, and it's almost like they can't wait for shit to blow up on you, I don't know if I want to work with that person. I want to work with the person who wants to be professional, who knows that awareness and avoidance are the two top things, keeping people safe. That's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for someone who's itching for a fight. When we look at liability, the things that pertain to carrying a weapon are going to come down to personal versus corporate in a lot of cases. Obviously, there's criminal implications as well. You can be arrested if you break the law in the area that you're working. You can also be sued civilly. Corporations can be sued. So there's a lot of things to be considered there. Individual versus vicarious liability. Individual is me, the agent. I can either be arrested for committing a crime, whether it's brandishing a firearm, whether it's an assault, or whether it's manslaughter or murder. I can be arrested for these things, okay? Vicarious liability, that is where a person or a company, an entity, is responsible for the actions of another. Okay, so that's why people a lot of times will sue a company instead of the agent themselves, or they will sue a state or a government entity instead of the officer, because they're looking for deep pockets. Okay, and case law has shown that a lot of companies should be responsible for what their employees or their contractors do, not because they were there, but because they either knew or should have known that something was a risk or could have gone down. So big time discussions there. Also, just because it's legal doesn't make it simple. Okay? I can shoot somebody on the East Coast or I can shoot somebody on the West Coast. Let's say both of them are quote unquote clean shoots. The person was assaulting me and I had to defend myself. It was a self-defense situation. On the West Coast, there tends to be a predominating thought process, a legal thought process of preclusion, which means that if I did have to use deadly force and I took someone's life, they're going to look at the situation and say, hey, did Brian the agent do everything he could to avoid it? Okay. Was there a door he could have walked out of? Did he leave his vehicle and go follow somebody when he could have just called the cops? Okay. That's something that's been in the media lately. So if I did go put myself in that situation and cause myself to become assaulted, I might be guilty of manslaughter. On the East Coast, they have a stand your ground principle. Okay, so it's a big hairy mess. Okay, and legal doesn't make it simple. In a lot of cases, legal doesn't make it right. And you have to remember, you're going to be your career, your future is going to be dependent upon a jury in how the case and circumstances are presented to them. So it's a pretty big deal, right? Training considerations. Obviously, if you or your company decides that the agents will be carrying firearms, you need to be trained on your firearms, whether it's pistol, rifle, shotgun. Get your training, okay? Also be trained on less than lethal weapons. This can come into play, and I have been through this personally, where the use of force, deadly use of force has been used, and when you get into court, you're going to be asked, well, were you trained on less than lethal weapons? Was there an opportunity to use this? Depending upon the threat and the time between that threat and when you had to take action. Okay, was there a chance for a less than lethal weapon? What was your intent? Not only based on what you say, but based on what third-party witnesses are going to say. You either did or the things that they say you said. So get trained on less than lethal weapons. Carry them. If you're carrying a firearm, you should have a less than lethal weapon option as well. Verbal de-escalation. Make sure you and or your staff are trained in verbal de-escalation. Okay? You don't want things to get to this level even if you're dealing with assholes. Okay? We want to work in this career for 20, 30, 40 years. We want to have as much money as we can, and the way you're going to keep your money is by not getting sued. Okay? You can be cleared of all criminal charges and then be sued civilly, and because you didn't use maybe these two options as much as what the legal entity in your area thinks, you could lose a whole lot of money. And you don't want that to happen. So get trained and only work with people who are cool, calm, and collected. When it comes to training in either firearms, less than lethal weapons, or verbal de-escalation, make sure you have a plan and make sure you follow it. Make sure it's a written plan for initial training in all three of the areas, and also annual refresher training in all three of the areas. Okay. Remember, you represent either your company or your employer, and you want to do things right. Okay. In conclusion, the decision to carry or not will be determined by a number of the factors that we've just talked about, whether you're an employee or a contractor, the threat assessments. So every client, every situation can be different. Sometimes you're going to want to carry, sometimes you won't. Okay, legal limitations. What does the law say you can and cannot do in your area, in your local area? Know that sometimes legal teams, whether it's lawyers or paralegals, they can make mistakes. Okay? You don't have to be negative, you don't have to be aggressive, but you do have to be knowledgeable and you have to be assertive. So go read the laws yourself. Read laws on self-defense. Okay? Read the laws on the protection of personal property in your state. Okay? And know what you can and cannot do. A lot of times, lawyers and paralegals will tend to make decisions based off of law enforcement requirements. And you are a private citizen. You are not a cop. You are not a police officer. You are not a military soldier. Okay? So make sure that you are basing your decisions, or they are basing theirs, off of the right things. They make mistakes. I've been there. I've known the law. I just bring it to them and I show them. If they make a decision that kind of pisses me off, I don't attack them. I say, well, I understand where you're coming from, and it's interesting because this is what I read. How does this apply to our situation? And I will slide the statute over to them and see what they say. Okay. Sometimes the CEO, actually in one case, the CEO that I was working for fired his legal team because I brought some information to the table that they should have known about. Okay, so know your legal limitations. Company policy. Okay, a lot of times there will be legal limitations, but company policy will expand on that and make things even a little bit harder to do. So hey, I hope this has helped you guys out a little bit. My name is Brian Allen with International Security Training. Remember that carrying a firearm is a huge responsibility, and the whole topic and decisions that we have to make in regards to it are not always easy as they may seem or as we may want them to be. So until next time, stay safe.